Miami is the most innovative city right now that is staying ahead of that disruptive curve, preparing itself for the future.
Yeah.
So I would tell anybody, like, that's where you want to be. In a decentralized world as well, you know, you have to be where capital is aggregated and those aggregation decisions are made. But I think what people don't understand is this is a fundamental reordering of our country. This is what I call tsunami of opportunity. It's a change in the gravitational center of gravity of the U.S.
All right, and we're back with the one and only Mayor Suarez. So happy to have you here.
It's happy to be here in my own office being interviewed, which is very unusual. It's awesome.
Right, yeah, because you've been doing the Cafecito Talks, bringing everybody from the world.
Usually I'm in that chair asking you instead of the other way around.
It's a pleasure that I get the chance this time. So let's jump right in. You know, in the last 2 years, you've really done the unthinkable. You turned two of the most challenging years in the world. We've had a pandemic, we've had record level inflation, we've had now a recession, and yet it's been like a golden era for Miami. What do you do differently, and why is nobody else doing it?
I'm going to ask you the second question first. Why is no one else doing it? I have no idea. I think it's pretty simple what we're doing. It's based on some simple principles. I think the most important one is when all the world was going left, we were going right. You know, in the sense that while all the world was pushing out innovators, creators, famously in New York, they pushed out Amazon after they won HQ2. In California, you know, you had a legislator say F Elon Musk, and he said message received and left. You know, it's important. I had so many conversations with so many leaders in industry, and they constantly tell me it's important to feel welcome. It's important to feel safe. These are very basic things. So we've, you know, some cities have defunded their police. We've increased funding for our police. We have the most police officers we've ever had. We've given them technological tools. We pay them well. And guess what? Crime has gone down. We have historic low homicide rates. You know, most people are tired of paying government more in taxes.
Sure.
Right? Why do they keep paying more in taxes? We lowered taxes last week to the lowest level in recorded history. So, and by the way, we had the second most growth in recorded history as well. We grew 12% last year. So the more money you put back into people's pockets, the more they reward you by investing in your city. And then that actually has an impact on your budget. So we've lowered taxes and our budget has doubled in size. So, you know, people think that the way to get more revenue for governments is to raise taxes. That actually gives you a bigger percentage of their income, but that also pushes them away.
Of course,
So I was talking to somebody today, I won't mention the person's name, who tells me they pay $100 million in taxes to New York. If that person leaves, $100 million in taxes leaves with it. So it's really not rocket science, and that person may leave if there's a marginal tax increase of 5%. So whatever you think you get, you're going to lose 100% of that person's, you know, you don't just lose a diminishment factor, you lose everything.
Yeah, and I have to say, you know, this isn't just words that you're saying, because like I experienced this myself. You know, I came from LA to Miami, and you know, Kevin from your team shot me an email out of the blue saying, "Hey, I saw on social media that you mentioned you're moving to Miami. How can we help?" You know, we had coffee, he showed me tons of resources, so like we're living it.
This is, I think, a part that doesn't get told enough. You know, we're very gritty. We're very entrepreneurial as a city, and we've bought in on the idea that we can be more. Right, that this scalability that technology gives you, this ability to really have a transformational impact on the world, we want a piece of that. We want to be a part of that. We want to create high-paying jobs. And people like Kevin, who work in Venture Miami with us, they have that spirit. You know, he has that energy, he has that focus, he has that drive. So he's a microcosm of what's going right with our city, what's going right with our office. It's this. I tell you what, it's not about the money for him, right? It's an insatiable. It's who he is, his DNA. It's who I am. I don't get paid a lot of money to be the mayor in the grand scheme of things, right? You know, it's the same salary that the mayor's had since 1997. But it's not about the money. It's about the passion for what you do. It's about changing the world. It's about, you know, leaving a mark on the city that you grew up in, that has given you every opportunity, right? And you know, we come to work every day and we think about not just, you know, what can we do to create more tech jobs. We think about how can we help the most vulnerable in our community, and how do we allow them to benefit from this movement. We spend much more time thinking about that than I think we get credit for and that people understand.
In there somewhere you mentioned also technology. You know, something that I've noticed too that you do differently is that government and technology seems at odds a lot of times, where it's like whether you go to like decade-old websites, whether you go, don't get me started on the DMV, you know, and you seem to be embracing technology with open arms. How do you, and you particularly you also just mentioned helping the most vulnerable. How can, governments maybe use technology more to, uplift the standard of living for everybody while cutting costs?
Well, a few things. One is, I think, you have to walk the walk. If you want to be a tech ecosystem as a government, as an organization, you need to be technological. You need to be at the forefront of the most innovative technology and be an innovative organization, right? Yeah. Where, we had up until recently a phenomenal, chief innovation officer, CIO, Mike Sarasti, who was great. And, we're a $1 billion company with 4,500 employees and 4 labor unions. Now, I don't believe, philosophically, that government is capable of or should solve everybody's problems.
Sure.
Right? Yeah. If that were the case, we'd be in a communist system where the government is responsible for everything of our everyday society. I do think that we as leaders have a moral obligation to try to convene people, to have ideas, to work with the private sector. And I do think one of the things that's happening, and I think it's technologically driven, and one of the things I see with technologists is A, they're fundamentally positive, and B, they're really more about having an impact than they are about making money. The money part often comes with having an impact. Like if you do something like Uber that, that obviously revolutionizes rideshare, but also has a secondary benefit, DUIs drop by 50%, right? Sure, you're going to make a lot of money, right? But you're also creating a tremendous benefit for society. So I find in technologists that their main motivation is usually solving a problem, right? Creating some benefit. The money part is just sort of a byproduct of that process, and it's fundamentally very positive.
Yeah, because it's how many people can you help, right? If you can help 1 billion people, you're probably gonna make $1 billion, right? But if you only help 10 people, then
but that's why the how can I help thing took off, right? The how can I help model took off. It took off because it was a simple phrase. Really, it was based on how do we move Silicon Valley to Miami, which is how do you create a tech ecosystem.
Yeah.
And I wrote back innocently, how can I help? But the how can I help thing was refreshing to people because it was like, first of all, like you said, it was counterintuitive because people were pushing out tech, we were embracing tech. Secondly, it was like a politician saying, I want to be helpful, I don't want to be hurtful, I don't want to get in your way, I want to facilitate.
Yes.
Right? And I think number 3, at a basic level, as human beings, we all want to be helpful to each other, right? If we want to see each other succeed. It's a fundamentally positive worldview, as opposed to all the haters and the people that are constantly crapping on you and telling you why you can't do something or you're corrupt or you're no good. I choose an alternative path. I choose to be positive. I choose to build. I choose to create and inspire. That's just my choice.
And so now, because you brought up the tweet, it's been roughly 2 years now, maybe a year and a half, and so many times we see headlines where it's like somebody wants to be Silicon Beach, Silicon Valley, Silicon this and that. But usually it's a headline, it's a flash in the pan. It's been a year and a half now, momentum keeps going. How are you planning on keeping the momentum going where you actually now, I think 6.9% of New York immigration is going to Miami,
Well, I think it's a fundamental, I think what people don't understand is it's a fundamental reordering of our country. This is a what I call tsunami of opportunity. It's a change in the gravitational center of gravity of the U.S. That's what I believe.
Yeah.
And are there things that we need to do to fulfill that sort of destiny, if you will? Yes. One of the things that we need to do and that we're working feverishly on is getting that sort of high-level educational reputation, right? Where, right now we don't have the reputation of a Penn, Wharton.
Sure.
We don't have the reputation of a Harvard or an MIT or a Stanford. But we're working with our institutions and with other institutions on partnerships that'll help us bridge that gap.
Right.
But people don't understand that Palo Alto and Silicon Valley, 95% of the people that live there were not born there, right?
They migrated,
right? They migrated there because that's where the capital was, right? And so they wanted the talent to be there. And so right now we're seeing a massive amount. We're number 1 in the nation for tech job migration. We're number 1 in the nation for tech job growth as well. So if you have the AUM, if you're building the jobs, the talent's going to come. What we want to see is our homegrown talent that has left us for decades. We want them to stay. And then we want to create a new model where the most vulnerable in our society, or the ones that have grown up with the most difficult circumstances, still have an opportunity to succeed, which they've constantly been left behind by society, which is what keeps perpetuating these issues generation after generation.
100%. No, and it's one cool Miami story that we had. I moved to Miami last year. Jonathan Abadia, right, from XLab. We just invested in him. Good. So, so now it's like 2 Miami companies.
He's one of my guys.
I love him. But one of the things I wanted to dig deeper on, you mentioned, talk about attracting talent, and whether it's a startup CEO or whether it's a, as a mayor, it's the number one. What are maybe your top 3 pieces of advice for attracting the best talent, like making them buy into the vision that you have?
I think the first thing I would say is the world is changing rapidly, and you can see that in the way you build these companies, right? We're going from an industrial economy to a digital economy, right? And so whenever there's a massive disruption like that, there are opportunities and people get disrupted out of existence, right? Yep. And we saw that, like, obviously, what happened to Detroit, and what's happened to other cities in the past that failed to keep up with the rate and pace of disruption. Miami is the most innovative city right now that is staying ahead of that disruptive curve and is preparing itself for the future. Yep. So I would tell anybody, like, that's where you want to be. In a decentralized world as well, you have to be where capital is aggregated and those aggregation decisions are made. And that is increasingly becoming Miami as well. And then I would say third, location is still important at some level. And, Miami is the only city that's in the middle of 5 mega markets, which are New York, Silicon Valley, South America, the Middle East, and Europe. None of those markets are closer to the other 5 than Miami is to all of them. And that proximity is important because, you're going to be able to get anywhere quickly. And obviously as technology improves, that's even going to get better.
100%. I know you're short time, so I want to ask you one more big question. People see you, if I say this, as a potential future U.S. president. You don't have to confirm or deny the allegations, but for now, Miami is really working hard.
I don't confirm or deny that they see me that way.
I think a lot. So, but what's your vision for Miami, let's say, for the next 10 years, Because I can tell just by the answers you give that you do think in long terms. You're thinking of things like, getting like a university, like improving the university system. That's going to have impacts decades from now.
Well, if you think about what's happening in the Middle East, A, their leadership is getting younger, and B, they have a vision.
Yeah.
And you need a vision because you need to chart a course. How do you know where you're going to go if you're not even focused on the future? I think part of the problem is because we continue to elect last generation politicians, their vision is and their plans are year to year. They're very, very short term, right? And I think rather than debating and fighting over a lot of the stuff that we fight about politically, we should be focused on how do we create a generation of prosperity? How do we create or a buy or try generation of prosperity, right? So I'm focusing on, I have an 8-year-old and a 4-year-old. I'm very blessed. I've done very well. I'm very happy. How do I create prosperity for them? How do I create prosperity for their children? There are so many kids in my city that are not going to be born with the same advantages that they were. Yeah. What do we do to make their life more successful? How do we give them an opportunity to be successful? And that's why we've done things like created charter schools in partnership with Miami-Dade College, which is the largest community college in the country. We want to be different. We really want to keep leveraging our relationships to benefit more people.
Awesome. What's the best way people can, find out more about your mission?
Social media.
Social media, so
yeah,
Instagram,
I have
Twitter.
I have a Twitter. I do not have TikTok.
Not yet. We gotta get you on there.
No, it's
no dance moves.
No, it's one of those things where it's like Chinese controlled. I gotta figure that out. But I don't have that yet. So I don't. But I mean, again, I'm pretty easy to find, and I think part of the excitement of the How Can I Help campaign was how accessible I was.
100%.
And certainly we have a team that's very accessible.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for your time, and thanks for having me on Miami.
Thank you, man.